Alright, this is going to be a tutorial on making a simple timer in Visual Basic 6. Visual Basic 6 because my school had that when I learned Visual Basic, so that's what I know how to use. First thing I'm going to need is some labels. I'll make these width 800 and height 800. As you can see, I'm using the properties area over here and finding the height and width bits and putting in the numbers. We'll put the name as hours, and the caption can be blank for now. Now I'll copy this and I'll say no, I don't want a control array. And I'll do that again. I'm only going to need this small area over here. So you see I have these, right? They're all 795 by 795 apparently. That one will be hours, that one can be minutes, and that one is seconds. Obviously you can see I'm laying out the basic layout of the form. So the next thing I'm going to need is command buttons, which I will make like this. And again, copy them and say no when it asks for a control array. Let's see, the width is, yeah, that's right. No, that was... I'm picky about my placement, so don't worry about that. The first one... Okay, all of them I'm going to get rid of the caption and replace them. The first one I'm going to caption as start. And I'm going to name it start. The second one I'm going to name as pause, unpause. You have to remember to use whatever guidelines for naming things and so on that you're given. In this case I used camel case, which is when the start of each word is capitalized, in case you didn't know. So that's pause, unpause, and it's going to be captioned pause/unpause. I think I'll make these buttons. I might move these up. I don't want the programming window yet. Pause/unpause. You can make it look prettier if you want. I'm just doing this as an example, so it doesn't matter. And this one will be reset, and the caption will be reset. And there's only one thing left that we need, which is this timer here. We'll name it whatever we want to name it. I'll name it Stopwatch timer, and I'll set the interval to 1000 because the interval is in milliseconds, so 1000 is 1 second. Too much lower and it won't be able to keep up properly, and because it has to update constantly, and too high and you're not going to get a very accurate timer. Now we go to the programming side of things. The first thing, I'm going to get rid of that option explicit because I don't need that. Thank you very much. Okay, form load. Under form load, we're going to have what our initial conditions are going to be when it starts up, right? So, start dot enabled equals true. This means that the start button will be usable at the start, which is what we want. Pause unpause dot enabled equals false, and reset dot enabled equals false. These are very self-explanatory, so it's just the buttons being activated or not, active to use or not at the start. The second thing we're going to do is actually program this. The very first thing I'm going to do is program my start button, where I'm going to... Oh, I'm also going to put one more thing for each of these in here before I forget, because I shouldn't do that. Hours.label... No, sorry, that's not right. It's hours.caption. It'll fill in this caption field here, which will be what it displays with anything you put in here under hours.caption. Hours.caption equals 0. Minutes.caption equals 0. Seconds.caption equals 0. So now it will start up showing that each of these are equal to 0. We don't need that seconds.click because we're not going to use a thing when you click on seconds. For this private sub, which is clicking the start button, it'll make start dot... Actually, for this you can just copy these 3 lines, obviously, because this is the things we're changing. Start dot enabled... Oh, I've gotten one thing from my form load. That's going to be... that. Alright. I have to make sure the stopwatch timer is set to false. So stopwatch timer.enabled equals false. That's the one thing I have to remember as well. I'm going to move that up there so that they're all together. So when you press the start button, all these are going to... This is what's going to happen. So I'm going to set stopwatch timer.enabled to true. Reset.enabled is still going to be false. Pause/unpause.enabled is going to be not toss, true. And start.enabled is going to be false. Ow. Paused, unpaused, underscore click, which means the conditions when you click that button are start.enabled equals false, still. Pause, unpause, dot enabled equals true, because we will always want that to be true. Now I'm going to use an if statement. If stopwatch timer dot enabled equals true, then stopwatch timer dot enabled. I'm going to need to fix that because that's going to produce an error if I have a lowercase there. Equals false, and reset dot enabled equals true. Else, which is the other condition, when the if condition is not true, it'll, in any case that the if condition is not true, will follow what's under the else statement. Stopwatch timer dot enabled equals true, and reset dot enabled equals false. Then the reset button is our next task. which is easy. Okay, the reset button is our next task. Sorry about that little pause there. So what we want to do is reset it to these settings. So we just copy and paste that basically, and it resets everything back to the initial state when you click on it and it's enabled, which is only when the stopwatch timer has been started and then paused. There's only a little bit more programming left to do now. Double click on the timer and you'll get stopwatch timer underscore timer, which is the conditions when the timer times over. What you want is to make this little area will display 0 at the start. To make it go up, you want it to make it go up, and then when it reaches 60 you go back to 0 and make this one go up, right? And so on. The first thing we want is seconds dot caption equals seconds dot caption plus 1, which will add 1 to the value of seconds dot caption. Then if seconds dot caption equals 60, then seconds dot caption equals 0, and minutes dot caption equals minutes dot caption plus 1, and if now that's going to mean that whenever the seconds field whenever the value of the seconds field equals 60, the value of the seconds field is reset to 0, and the value of the minutes field is set to 1, or 2, or whatever is 1 more than what it already is. So basically it has 1 added to it. Now we just want this again, basically, but we just want to change a couple of things, right? This if statement. So I'm going to copy and paste that, change that to if minutes dot caption equals 60, then minutes dot caption equals 0, and hours dot caption equals hours dot caption plus 1, which does exactly the same thing, but for when this field, the minutes field, equals 60, changing the hours field to whatever it was before plus 1, and the minutes field to 0. And that's it. Right. Now, when I click start, you'll see that it's going up. And I only need to display the change in the minutes field, because obviously it works the same for the hours field, because it's the same code, just with the names of the different fields, those instead of those. Now, when this reaches 60, it won't actually display 60, it'll display 0 again, and this will display 1, because I've done this right. And, oh, wait, come back. Oh. There we go. Sorry, that was a silly thing to do. Now, I really don't need to show you this. I'm sure you know how a timer works. A stopwatch. It's not really that difficult. There. You see? Works perfectly. If I go to pause... Oh, I made a mistake. Pause on pause underscore click. That's strange. What have I done? Block if... Oh, I forgot the end if. That's an important tip for anyone trying to use this. If you have an if statement, you always have to have your end if statement before you have the end of the sub, or you're going to get an error. Anyway, now that I fixed that, if I click pause, it will stop, and the reset button will enable. If I click reset, everything resets back to normal. If I press start, it will start again, obviously. If I press pause and then I press pause again, it will go back to being unpaused. So it works perfectly. That's it for the tutorial, and thanks for watching.